Alright, so let's take a look at some more of our rational exponent examples. In example 10, what I want to point out is that we have this base of what looks like a negative 8 raised to the negative 5/3 power, very similar to what we had in our last example of the last video. However, if you notice, there are no parentheses here. So if there's no parentheses, that means that we have to evaluate this exponent before we evaluate the negative. You can think of it like a negative 1 times 8 to the negative 5/3 power. So we have this 8 to the negative 5/3 power. Negative exponent, this goes 1 over 8 to the positive 5/3 power. I'm not forgetting about this negative that's out front. We'll deal with that in the end. 8 to the 5/3 power is the cube root of 8. Remember, we look at our root first. So cube root of 8, and we're going to raise that to the 5th power. Cube root of 8 is 2, and 2 to the 5th power is 32. So this negative 1, it's basically negative 1 times whatever this is. Well, this we simplified down to 1 over 32. So negative 1 times 1 over 32 is a negative 1 over 32. So just be very careful with that negative. Be very careful with if you do not have parentheses with your negative base. All right, so our next one, we have negative 27 to the 1/3 power. Again, that negative's not inside parentheses with the 27, so we do 27 to the 1/3. Looking at our root, we can see it's the cube root of 27. Our power is 1, so we could write that or not write that, and that negative we can just keep out front. Cube root of 27 is 3, because 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. Raised to the 1st power is just 1, and our negative comes down, so this is just a negative 3. Alright, so we have 9 to the 3rd power to the 1/2 power. So, if you have a power raised to a power, if you remember, one of our exponent properties is to go ahead and multiply exponents. So 3 times 1/2, you can picture it this way, 3 over 1 times 1 over 2, which is just an exponent of 3/2. So really we need to evaluate 9 raised to the 3/2 power. Our root is 2, so it's the square root of 9. We're going to raise that to the 3rd power. Square root of 9 is 3, and 3 to the 3rd power is 27. Example 13, we have 16 to the 1/2 power raised to the 1/2 power. So again, here's an exponent raised to an exponent. So our exponent property tells us to multiply that. So really that's 16 times 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. And then we're going to rewrite that in what we call radical form with the root. So it's the 4th root of 16 raised to the power, which is 1. 4th root of 16 is 2, because if you multiply a 2 4 times, you will get 16. And 2 raised to the 1st power is just 2. So there's our final answer. All right, 4 to the 1/4 raised to the negative 4th power. Let's go ahead and multiply 1/4 times negative 4. Make that a negative 4 over 1, and we get negative 4 over 4, or an exponent of just negative 1. So this really is 4 raised to the negative 1 power. Well, there's a negative exponent. We're going to bring it to the bottom to make it positive. 1 over 4 to the positive 1 power, which is just 1 over 4. All right. So this example, pretty similar to the last one. If you notice, now we have a negative exponent on the inside, positive exponent on the outside. Doesn't change anything, you still would multiply that. Negative 1/4 times 4 over 1 still gives you that negative 4 over 4, which is negative 1. So we have 4 raised to the negative 1 power. Goes to the bottom, 4 to the first, which is 1 over 4.